Hello, this is Mr. Buffington, and this is a lesson on comparing and ordering numbers when you have fractions, decimals, and percentages, and probably the most efficient way to order and compare those. So first off, this is the way that I would do it. Whenever you have fractions, decimals, and percents, and you're comparing them, you change everything into a decimal, and that way you're looking at the same thing. You could also change everything into a percent or everything into a fraction, but it's easiest to change everything into a decimal, and I'll show you how to do that in about, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 minutes. So here's an example. You're asked to compare these three numbers: 130%, 8 out of 6, that's the fraction of 8 over 6, and 1.4. When we're asked to compare these numbers, what we're going to do is follow that rule that I said before. We're going to convert all of them into decimals. So step 1, I'm going to convert 130% into a decimal. To do that, what we do with percentages is that we know that the decimal is on the end. And to convert it into a decimal, a whole number decimal, what you're going to do is shift that decimal place 2 places. So instead of being 130, it is 1.3. So remember, just shift the decimal 2 places. Then it becomes a number written as a decimal that's a lot easier to compare with everything else. So we're going to replace 130 in our list with 1.3. And now we're going to work on our fraction. So converting a fraction into a decimal is quite simple. What you need to do is grab your calculator. I've got my calculator sitting right here. And you're going to take 8 divided by 6, because 8 over 6 means 8 divided by 6. So I plug into my calculator 8 divided by 6, and that gives me here 1.33333 repeated on and on and on and on and on. Now, I can take that information and go ahead and plug that back into our list, 1.333 repeated. And now I have a decimal, a decimal, and a decimal. It's a lot easier for me to order or compare when I have them all in the same form. So what I can do now is to compare these numbers is simply look at them. 1.3, 1.33, 1.4. They're currently in order from least to greatest. All right, the smallest one here is at the far left side and the largest is at the right. You just look at which ones are bigger. Okay, the only challenge with this is, again, if we're dealing a little bit with negative numbers with comparing. But again, you would use the same rules that you do when you're with negative whole numbers. You're going to be comparing the same exact way, and by converting everything into decimals, you make it so that you're comparing the same thing. Let's do some examples where we'll actually go through and solve these. You can pause the recording and try and solve them yourself, and that way you'll be able to remember a little bit better the steps for doing it. So go ahead and convert 2/3 into a decimal, convert 76% into a decimal, and compare them using less than, greater than, or equal to. All right. So over here on the right side, I'm going to convert 2 over 3. I know that that's the same thing as saying 2 divided by 3. I'm going to grab my calculator. 2 divided by 3 is 0.66 repeated. You can write that like this. So I'm going to substitute that in there. 0.66 repeated. And I'm comparing that to 67%. The rule with percentages is that we put a decimal at the end and we shift it 2 places. So that's the same as saying 0.67. All right, we shifted it 2 places, so now it's over here, 0.67. And you see that these two numbers are very, very close. But, I'm going to shift that over a little bit. However, 0.66 is going to be less than 0.67. So when we're asked to compare those two, we would use the less than symbol, or A. All right, because 66 is less than 67, so 0.66 is less than 0.67. All right. Some additional practice. Let's convert these two into decimals. This one here is nice because it's already in a decimal. sometimes when you're comparing, you'll already have it. So 0.02 is equal to 0.02. And we're just going to leave that exactly as it is. Okay. Now we're comparing that to 3%. With 3%, we're going to write in a decimal right there and shift it 2 places. So that will give us 0.03. Again, these numbers are fairly close, but we know that 2 is less than 3, so 0.02 is less than 0.03. Less than. All right? One more practice problem with a decimal and a percentage. Again, we've got a decimal, so we're just going to leave that the same. Now we've got a fraction, 1/4, and we know that that means 1 divided by 4. Plug that into your calculator. 1 divided by 4, 0.25. So we have over here 0.23 and 0.25. Again, 23 is less than 25, so 0.23 is less than 0.25 when we compare them. So again, all of our answers have been the same, the less than, but we've had some good practice converting fractions, percentages into decimals so that we can compare them. And if you ever get a list of them, you change all of them into decimals and then put them in the correct order. So remember, whenever you're comparing them, change everything to a decimal, compare like normal.